So in your day-to-day life, do you intermingle the philosophical part with the technical part?
Oh yeah. One of the aspects of planetary geology and planetary science is that new data and new information is coming in very rapidly. This means that ideas have to change quickly. And so what we would normally see as a very slow process, like the process of resolving continental drift and understanding how the surface of the Earth works, which took more than a century. In planetary science, this happens quickly. Our ideas about Mars have changed totally within a decade because of new data from planetary missions.
So how would you translate this into a philosophical view?
I'm kind of like an empirical philosopher. I observe what it is that the scientists are doing and try to understand the philosophy that way. This is not unique to me. William Whewell, who I mentioned, was different than other philosophers of science because he recognized that science works ultimately. Scientists come to a kind of understanding of how the world works. And so instead of trying to use pure logic to say what scientists should do, he went and studied what scientists really do and tried to figure out what is it that they are doing that works. And he wrote about the history of the sciences that included geology, and he tried to see the things that made them productive. And by doing that, he was able to formulate ideas about how we can make our science work. Charles Peirce, by the way, read William Whewell and got some of his ideas from Whewell about this process of doing science. And he also, he was born in a science family. His father was a very important mathematician and astronomer at Harvard. So he grew up with mathematicians and scientists coming to his house and seeing everything that they did. So he learned his philosophy initially from the experience of being with scientists who were creative and doing the best kinds of science. And then later he read philosophy books to develop the language to describe this. So he didn't start thinking, what's the optimal philosophy we should apply? He was really creating his philosophy with the aid of what other philosophers have developed in regard to terminology and the like, to explain what it is that scientists really do that works. And that's, I find that's different than what a lot of philosophers are doing. Philosophers often, they read a science textbook or they read a scientific paper, but that doesn't tell you what the scientists really do. You have to be with the scientists. You have to be out there when they're, chipping at rocks and they're developing a hypothesis. Not when they're trying to convince people what it is that they found. That's kind of rhetoric as opposed to actually doing their science. So I think a lot of philosophers have been misled because they come at it from the wrong direction. If they really want to understand science, they have to do it and participate in it, and then they can develop some philosophical tools to explain what it is that is going on. The geologists themselves don't explain exactly how they do their thing. They do it, and they can say their other geologists will understand, but they're not using the logical terminology